Hello, good morning, good
It's good to be
afternoon.
unmuted, yeah.
It helps if the mic is not muted, that you can hear me, right? And for all those which have missed our first show in the new year, welcome to the lovely New Year 2026. Looking forward to a lot of positive experiences. We have had our analyst relationship ping pong last week, and now we would love to go in one of the most beloved industry parts where everybody is as keen to show his competence, like in the fantastic artificial intelligence field. This is manufacturing. If you are in that business, you find a lot of interesting sector or branch solutions, but everybody would love and likes to be in that space with manufacturing, especially here in Germany. Not speaking only for Germany, we have the expertise from a well-known chap out of his experiences with W systems, to be honest, like Wettre systems, where he was 24 years the boss and the president and drove innovation and the positive solution delivery for a lot of customers. Then he was, because he did such a good job, bought by Sugar CRM. And Sugar CRM then had a solution delivery division with him as an expert how to make it happen. Now, after 4.5 years, roughly, in different roles at Sugar CRM, he is now with TCP, a partner which is in the area of knowledgeable doing stuff for and with Epicor and Sugar CRM. Christian Wettre, welcome to our show again in that new role, and looking forward to have an interesting hour to ping pong on different opinions around CRM and Epicor's ERP and other ERPs. So, to kick it off, Thomas has one real nice opener created. The question, what is more important when it comes to a CRM system, AI or industry solution? What's your pick on that, Christian? And welcome again.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph, and Happy New Year to both of you. Thank you for inviting me to your show. I think this is the third time you're patiently processing my thoughts and ideas. So thank you. I appreciate it.
We are suffering so much.
And honest, if I'm not miscounting, it's even the fourth one, because you stepped in your sugar role for one of your VPs, such as he couldn't make it, you did make it. So we enjoy also now the fourth time.
That's great. So happy about that. And I get to that question. So I was expecting some trick question there, Thomas. But that's not too bad. That's not too bad. So industry solution and AI, it should be really the same. AI is a part of an industry solution. I think people are buying industry solutions. They're not buying AI. They want AI that is industry solutions. And so whenever I'm asked about AI, I really don't like to speak about AI per se. I like to talk about the industry solutions. What is it that you're buying? What capability are you buying? And if that happens to be provided by AI, and so much focus these days are on solutions that are provided by AI, that's great. But it's the industry solution that you're buying, and I think we're seeing that more and more in CRM, especially as we get into the mid-market. That people are buying industry solutions. They're just like they're buying ERP systems that are industry focused. And we represent Epicor, for instance, for ERP, and they have manufacturing ERP solutions that are specific types of manufacturing that they're really good at, and that's what people are buying in ERP. And I think that buying process of trying to find a CRM that provides additional value to your industry is also something that is happening.
Summary, the AI portion is a means to an end, with the end being delivering an industry solution.
It's a means to an end,
Mm.
clearly heavily accelerated these days.
Yeah.
And I was reading an article recently that I thought was kind of encouraging, really, especially as I've seen many posts about the death of CRM, which is disturbing to me, who has a career, and probably disturbing to you too, who's had a career in CRM. But so the death of CRM. I think not so. In this article that I read, which I thought was a great point because it was good for us, is that all these agents and AI tools out there that are doing transactions and helping with functionality, they need a place to put their transactions. So if they're customer facing, if they're customer journey facing, a lot of the AI, whatever they're doing, needs to be filed away somewhere in some master customer database, documenting that relationship and being the repository for humans or for other AIs. And CRM is natural for that, for the customer journey. And the same thing on the back office and the financial aspect of things. ERP is the natural place for business transactions, invoices, sales orders, inventory receipts. And whether it's a human or an AI agent that is performing those tasks, they still need a place to store the history and the audit of all that work that's been done. So if we were to interpret that in the context of today, maybe that means that there's a lot more users of CRM and ERP that's coming our way. In addition to the humans, also the agents that are performing these tasks need to be connecting to CRM and ERP to as a repository for information and depositing their tasks.
That's been a handful.
Very nicely said, Tom.
Now that I think I think everybody's reacting to that. Is it the death of an industry? Is it a positive to the industry? And I was on a podcast with my previous boss, Clint Oram, and he was always an optimist about technology. And when we talked about this, he spoke about it in the context of every industrial revolution there's been. There's been a time of disruption and change and doom and gloom, but in every case, the economy has dramatically expanded as a result of it. So I'm a glass half full person, and I think the economy will expand, humanity will expand and thrive, and hopefully CRM and ERP as well.
Well, CRM, as Clint usually says, CRM doesn't have a chance but thriving, because it's benefiting from both sides of the economic curve. But
exactly.
Following this doom and gloom scenario, well, actually it's clickbait. Why the heck do, apart from trying to desperately draw attention, do people say such bullshit?
I think it is mostly a reflection of SMB CRM. It's not a mid-market. I have spent my entire career in the mid-market, and I don't think it's a reality in the mid-market. I think it's a reality in the small business, the SMT, a small business market, and there's a lot more kind of agentic tools, kind of fixed functionality tools that do very specific things, that interact with each other well, and that are vendor and kind of SaaS delivered. And there might be a challenge in the kind of the larger CRM, the more comprehensive CRM, because many of these tools do different things, whether they're BDRs or SDRs or marketing or messaging or all these things. They increasingly work together and do something. That's not what we traditionally look at CRM. An SMB might replace their traditional CRM with a tool like Apollo, for instance, which is a data source, so kind of a pipeline building tool, and they might not need anything more than that. Whereas a mid-market has complex business processes that I think always will need kind of the construction of a CRM to support it. So more of a SMB type of problem than a mid-market problem.
It's still part of a CRM.
Still part of a CRM, but the doom and gloom not impacting mid-market as much as maybe on the SMB side.
Interesting observation. And there is still that funny little tool called contact management. So if somebody is performing and claiming he has a CRM, at least he has, if it's a lousy CRM, somehow usable contact management.
Yeah,
that is my experience.
Even that I think is changing. So if you look at the vendors who, like the Apollos and the Clays and all the dozens and dozens of vendors these days who advertise that they have a database of 300 million contacts, right?
Well, okay.
They all do that. They all do that. So storing the contact itself and making that your IP and property isn't that critical anymore, because you have this environment where you could have all the contacts in the world are there, and you just have to log, what you actually did with them, and that becomes less contact management, more this kind of market management.
Yeah,
and activity management. Yeah, it's more interesting than
yeah.
the Rolodex itself.
And how to get people engaged to interact with you, and that they realize that it is worth speaking with you.
Yeah.
Right. That is a domain of SMB. That is a domain of SMB where you're trying to get more customers, right? You don't have many customers as an SMB, but you have a huge market maybe, and you're kind of out there searching for more customers, and you're sending them emails and cold calling them and doing all these things. Whereas in the market that I serve, which is mid-market manufacturing, you know all your customers. You know that you're servicing these 1,000 organizations and you have about 5,000 people that you work with there. That's known. I'm not looking in that market for new contacts and sequencing them. I'm looking at communicating with them, engaging with them, and servicing them, and building the relationship, building and documenting the relationship, which is core to CRM.
Now that we have settled this, so it's not all doom and gloom, and well, the zombie that CRM seems to be is still very much alive and around.
Alive and kicking in the mid-market.
Well, alive and kicking, like, what was that? What was
and hopefully for all of us, growing fast. Fast in the mid-market with lots of new agent users that hopefully will need some type of license of CRM in order to access it.
Which is a totally different discussion of its own. So licensing models and subscription models and value generation out of that. But let's start with something a bit more simpler. So if we are talking about industry solutions, they are regularly going across applications. Let's call it an ERP an application, although this is dying too, if I read correctly. Read an article about the death of ERP today. So, well, apparently everything is dying away. It's stretching across applications. So there's a CRM application, there's an ERP application, and then usually when it comes to implementing all this stuff at a customer, there's also, guess what, a consultant, an SI or a VAR, maybe even, a strategy consultant. And now when it comes to defining an industry solution and building it out and setting up what's important and what not, who should be in the lead there? All of these three entities, four entities if I include the customer, they have skills. They have knowledge about the problems and the challenges and what's important and what not. And there are good arguments for either of them to be in the lead when it comes to defining that solution. Out of your view, who have been on all sides basically, who should be it?
I think it's an equal partnership. Usually the person who pays the bills is somewhat in control of it, but I think the consultant, our job is to know enough about the industry we're serving that we can explain how to use our product for effect. The role of the customer is to know their business, and we will as consultants never know their business and the nuances of their specific business as well as they do, right? So we just need to know, consultant needs to know enough to recognize the patterns of usage and have the history of domain expertise in the industry to know what is relevant from the product that they're selling. So in my current role, I have a fairly narrow market. I have discrete manufacturers, mid-market in North America. That's my market, which is largely what I've done, as you described, in my career for 20 odd years. So the luxury of that is you have so much context. You have the context of what these companies have done historically, what they're doing today. You're not distracted by many different industries that are doing different ways. You just have one thing. So as the consultant, we become more cost effective because we have built in basically a way of deploying our software for a very specific market, and we add a lot of value in that domain expertise. How is our product used for effect at this specific market? So then that's our role as consultants. Basically, we have the software. In our case, it's Sugar CRM and Epicor. Our job is to say, how do we help an organization, a selling organization, grow and sustain revenue over time with these tools? That's our job. The customer might have industry nuances and preferences and kind of timely problems that they're looking to solve, that they are looking to communicate to us and evaluate our solutions to see if they make sense for them and they fit into their priorities. So that to me is a partnership. And now that I'm in a smaller organization, TCP basically is a bunch of senior level executives from both Epicor and Sugar CRM that just has that experience of managing customers on their product lines. We just have senior level expertise in using these products. It's been the little slice of life that we've been working on for years and years. So as consultants, we provide a lot of value because of that.
And you're also building products of your own.
Right. Since we're serving that market, every CRM product has gaps. So we basically build solutions for those gaps and to fit in with our product market better.
Now, one could argue that, and I don't want to step on anybody's feet here, just for the sake of argumentation, that if the gaps become as big that SIs need to build their own products in order to close them, that something is wrong with product development.
That's always the case, but often, partners, implementation partners like us, whether it's CRM or ERP, we're there working with customers, and we see those gaps, and we feel them very urgently. Sometimes we see them gaps with a very specific client, and we look to solve it for that client. So it's very common that partners build industry and niche solutions sooner than the manufacturer, the vendor of the software itself, who focuses more on general, wider market infrastructure and capability. So then it only becomes an issue if our solution, for instance, highlights a specific opportunity where eventually the manufacturer builds it into the software. But as a partner, as a benefit, we are looking to fill gaps and deliver solutions to make our product valuable to the customer. Ideally, our vendor, who we represent, would have that functionality in it. But if they don't, we'll build it. And if they later on come and copy us and build the same thing, fantastic. We'll go on and fill other gaps.
Yeah, but it's kind of, there's this word that copying someone is the best way of flattering them, right? But
sure.
On the other hand, there usually goes quite some investment into these add-ons, extensions, stopgap solutions, however you want to call them. So, which means that as a smaller party, you'd like to have some reasonable assurances, to put a harsh word, assurances that, the investment has a chance of returning some profits. How does a smaller company, a partner, deal with the usually bigger partners, which the vendors are, in order to have it at least a chance of retaining that? I mean, there are a couple of companies starting with S as well, but not going on with UGA CRM that are very good at
that dynamic. That dynamic works everywhere for everyone. Yeah. There's always somebody bigger than you, stronger than you, that has more money than you, has better hair than you, right? There's always somebody. Always somebody. So So even if we're a small organization and we're trying to fill some gaps, in niche products, we make the decisions. Are they suitable for us? Are they things that we can handle? Is it worth the investment or not? Those are business decisions you make on every level, even if you're Salesforce and you're a very big dog in the market. You still have to make those evaluations. Should we invest in this human resource technology where we're going to compete with Workday or ServiceNow or something like that? And is it worth it? So the dynamics are the same, I think. So just have to make sensible business decisions and do what you think you need to do to fit your market.
Okay. So turning that a little bit around, what are the critical success factors then for defining whether this is or finding that an investment is a wise investment or not?
It's I would say, like typically, like any investment, like, are there barriers to entry? Like, if you make this investment, do you have something to offer and build it upon that is not so easily overcome by anybody else in the marketplace? Do you have domain expertise? Do you have technical expertise? Do you have market positioning that gives you an advantage where somebody, if you're successful with it and people learn that you're making money on this functionality, that they're not going to run in and basically replace you, right? That is the key thing, I think, in any investment is, are there enough barriers to entry that presumably if you're successful, will somebody come in and just copy you?
So ability to defend oneself.
Ability to defend. And like, say, for instance, in our case, we are a very specific case. We are specialists in Sugar CRM and Epicor Kinetic. So that's a barrier to entry. Not a lot of people are experts in both those two tools. And in order to compete with them, you would need to be. So there's probably a handful of companies in the world that match that description. And not even a handful, I think there's 2. And so that's a significant barrier to entry, protecting our investment.
Yeah, plus the focus on a micro vertical, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. The vertical is the size of a market that's suitable for what we need it to be successful and earn a living and put food on the table for our employees.
Going on that theme, vertical, I mean, I can't think of many CRM vendors who are not going vertical. And then most of them, if asked what is their vertical of choice, or what are their verticals of choice, name manufacturing. That doesn't make it that market a bit crowded?
Well, I think manufacturing, the reason people pick manufacturing is because it's the largest totally addressable market out there. So if you look at all the different markets in finance and services and manufacturing, any business analyst will come to the conclusion that the market with the biggest total addressable market, or TAM, is manufacturing, right? So that's what they all have done. But then manufacturing is so diversified in itself. You have process manufacturing and discrete manufacturing. Inside of discrete manufacturing, you have about 10 different industries, whether it's metal or woodworking or food, right? That all have specific requirements and sales models on how they work. So in order to be effective, you got to narrow it down even further to argue to focus on discrete manufacturing or process manufacturing. Is a big decision and whole different markets in themselves. So I think that's where, if you're serious about it, you have to get a little bit deeper into the weeds to be credible. To say you're just focusing on manufacturing by itself, I think that's probably a little too loosey-goosey to be effective in being able to conquer a market.
Well, still, most of them are claiming. So what do you tell your customers if they usually confront you with some other vendor? I'm quite sure of that.
Of course.
If
so
they are
again,
coming with the XYZ, I don't want to name anyone here. In your core expertise, what do you counter them with?
So
what is your secret sauce?
Yeah, it's not a big secret. I think we went through it at Sugar CRM. We're going through it here. The key thing with the mid-market manufacturer that's unique is that their business is driven by their ERP. All their customer relationships and so much of customer intelligence is driven and is contained by their ERP system. And if the sellers don't have access to that, then they're not going to be as effective as they should be. Yeah. And if you put ERP in front of a seller, typically they'll turn around and run the other way. It's very difficult to have a sales organization adopt ERP as their primary sales tool. So they'll typically walk away and continue using Outlook and Excel and their notepads and whatever tool they had, right? So the biggest thing about the manufacturer is, can you make their ERP relevant to the sellers and provide an access point to their ERP that is a tool of their choice where they can do their job. So that's what the vendors, ourselves, we basically realized that and have built a really, really strong integration between Epicor Kinetic and Sugar CRM. And that's what we go to market with. The other vendors who focus on manufacturing quickly comes to the conclusion that, hey, we got to be really friendly with ERPs. Then if you're in a general market, the challenge becomes that there's probably about 30 or 40 ERPs that are market leading. And is it practical? Can you really create a relationship with all of them at the same level? So that's, that becomes challenging quickly.
If now integration is one of the core topics, which I wouldn't disagree with, not at all. I mean, I just asked Perplexity. So there are bunches of, apparently, didn't try them myself, fairly good integrations to systems, to CRM systems. So what then makes one stand out versus the other?
So I can talk to the two areas where we focus of standing out. It is, one is having the data be real time. So basically access to the data can either flow between the systems or the systems can read each other in real time. Yeah. So in our integration, we focus on both. We focus on some core information like customer relationships flowing back and forth between CRM and ERP. But some other things don't need to live inside a CRM, for instance. We should be able to look at shipments and invoices and quotes and various ERP components just live. So that's what we built into our integration. Second thing that they need to do is that you need to mimic real workflows. So you need to basically be able to have kind of the lead to quote to order to cash workflows work seamlessly between the two systems. So you have to have a seller being able to create an opportunity in CRM, maybe initiate the quote or the quote request, to have that turn into an opportunity. When they win the opportunity, have it turn into a sales order in ERP. When the sales order has been submitted, have the sales order be back into CRM as the one booked revenue, for instance, booked orders. So that kind of workflow of having the two seamlessly work together will make it very differentiated. And that's kind of, and that's a level of integration that goes beyond just pushing data from one system to another, resolving conflicts if the two are mismatched, right? It's really doing the work in either system and having it flow back and forth seamlessly. That's how we approach it at TCP.
Okay. But just for the record, I did a follow-up question. So you are turning out fairly favorable when asking Perplexity. So apparently there's a good job between Sugar and Epicor.
We're AI approved.
AI approved. Let me check which AI now answered it. I think it was Claude. No, we are back to best. So I don't know which model it was. Yeah. So unspecified AI approved.
Good.
So that's good.
And then so the top level is integration, and then it becomes then like say in our view, like what's important to manufacturers, since that's what this topic here is a little bit about. There's kind of a dirty little secret in CRM, and that is kind of how the account contact relationship is actually stored. Because in CRM, it's many ways it's mirrored after the way a software vendor thinks about it. Is here's a company, they want to buy CRM, here's the buying entity, work to sell it to them, they sell it and they renew it and so forth, right? That's how a software vendor thinks about their customer relationship. But a manufacturer doesn't quite think that way because their customer is much more complex typically. There is maybe a buying office, there's many plant locations, there's many inventory locations, there's service locations, and these are spread across geographies, sales territories, the different areas of the world. So the customer relationship is much more complex than can be normally rendered in a CRM. So one of the gaps that we solve is how do we help a customer see an overview of the entire customer relationships across the different territories, but all the different locations, and roll it up so that a CEO or an executive can go and visit one of their best customers and see across the board, across the territories, what are the customer service issues, what opportunities have we had together, what are being overserved, underserved, and be able to evaluate the relationship. That's not possible in most CRMs today without a lot of extra configuration. And so that's one thing. What's one area where we saw a gap and set out to solve it. And when we approach our customers, that's what we kind of lead with. We lead with, hey, your needs are slightly different than your regular CRM. And here's what you need. This is our domain expertise. This is how we do it. And if we can show the value of that, then we have a huge leg up on anybody else we're competing against, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or Microsoft or whatever, because they're not talking that industry need where you're recognizing a pain point and solving it with what you're providing.
Now that ties back into the former point. So if there is a big gap and they are calling credibly or trying to credibly call it an industry solution, and they can't even model the org chart of their clients appropriately, is that an industry solution? Or is that
it could still be an industry solution if it's suitable to build those things. So, if it's possible, if it has the core elements and say Salesforce or Microsoft or Sugar particularly have the core elements of B2B models that are extendable. They have business process functionality and notification, they have collaboration functionality. So they have a lot of the core capabilities that's needed in those industries. But then they rely on partners like us to kind of put them all together and do the work, right? To make them effective for a specific company or a specific sub-industry. So coming to a partner like us, we've just solved a lot of those things that probably and no manufacturer will solve all these things. They will not come to the bottom of all these problems. They rely on partners to do that. Salesforce does that, Microsoft does that, Sugar CRM does that. They rely on partners down into the more niche industries and providing those specific solutions. And that's a proven model, and I think that model is not going anywhere.
Does it differ in different sizes of manufacturing companies? I mean, you are addressing the kind of the mid-sized markets with.
Yeah, for sure. Enterprise is different. Enterprise, there's whole different dynamics going on in what vendor you're choosing. So, if you're an enormous manufacturer, typically you'll pick a vendor that's also somewhat enormous, right? That's just natural. If you're a mid-market vendor, you pick more of a mid-market vendor. That's the natural rules of things.
Yeah, I'm talking more about needed capabilities or wanted capabilities apart from gorillas liking gorillas and not, well, chipmunks.
Certainly. I would say that's not as much of an issue. I think these days, even down to the SMBs, people are looking for rich, sophisticated functionalities. People are educated on CRM. They're educated on the possibilities that these tools can deliver on. So I think the requirements and features and functionalities, the demand for those are present in all kinds of sizes of industries. I would say manufacturing is probably on a more core selling focus, since a lot of it's account management based and quotation and opportunity identification based. There's some core CRM functionality there, whereas the sophisticated AI workflows are not typically there in a mid-market manufacturer. We don't hear a lot of needs for that on the CRM side. On the ERP side, more. On the ERP side, we're seeing that more and more. They're looking for cost efficiency gains of document processing. How do we process our invoices, our purchase orders, our inventory receipts? A lot of those things have efficiency gains that the new LLMs are just good at processing, and all the vendors, Epicor is going after that as a partner. We're trying to do that ourselves as well. Those are efficiency gains in existing processes that are mostly on the ERP side.
As you are have mentioned a bit of some specific roles already, and the differences in enterprise and SMB, I am a big fan of the buying center approach and checking for solutions such as, for instance, Sugar CRM, which cover that hierarchy and buying center approaches also with add-ons. Going for the buying center and checking who is influencing the decision, who is driving the progress, who is your internal sponsor, who at the end of the day is typically signing the check from your perspective and experience: sales, operations, service, or finance?
It varies. I would say that finance, it usually ends up in finance. Sales can demand and ask for and have a lot of clout in terms of what they're looking for, but ultimately the finance will be the yes or no, and it has to be signed in. In mid-market, CRM is almost mostly a strategic decision, where it goes all the way up to the CEO level to sign off on. ERP is always, a CEO level decision. If you're not influencing the CEO, you have a very hard time selling ERP for sure. On the CRM side, it doesn't usually go that far. Decision is usually made by sales leader, IT, implementation specialist, sometimes a consultant, and just the final check is a yes or no budget-wise by finance.
I took the question, so to say, by the tail, not by the hat. So I would like to go for the hat now, such as in manufacturing CRM. What's the single highest value outcome customers buy in dollars out of your experience over those 30 plus years?
So if I interpret the question correctly, and correct me if I'm going the wrong direction, it's really about sales efficiency. So when we're making that case for CRM, we usually argue that a seller typically wastes about a day and a half a week on chasing their internal teams, chasing customer service for a quote, chasing production for production status and inventory, chasing their own managers for approvals on special pricing. And so that takes a lot of administrative time if you don't have systems to kind of facilitate it. And ideally, in these type of businesses, you want your sellers at the customer location. It's very field oriented. You want your sellers to be at the customer location, touring their factories, speaking to their engineers, looking at blueprints for planning some new machine that they're looking to build next year or something. That's where the opportunities come from for expansion and continued orders. So the sales efficiency of getting them out of the office into the field, having them made productive in the field, that's where the dollars and cents are. And if you ask me to create an ROI calculator, which we of course have done, it's very much focused. It's very much focused on getting rid of processes, automating processes that prevent the seller from being in the field and being effective in the field.
And if you created that calculator, you probably also have done the other thing round, and measured the success,
Bingo.
where do you end up?
Yeah, so measuring success, is usually in can you improve your win rate? So can you compress the sales cycle? Can you run more sales cycles per rep? And can you improve the outcomes of each sales cycle? So usually the percentage gains are relatively small. If you could increase your win rates by 2 percentage points, that is an amazing accomplishment. If you could take it from 25 or 30 or 35% and add 2 points to that, that is a huge win. And if you can take it to
I don't hear you anymore.
He was still talking.
Yeah, did you hear me, Rolf?
Ralf anymore?
Did you hear me, Rolf?
Can we hear each other? Then don't bother. Continue. I'll fix my issue.
I'll keep talking, and maybe the internet will catch up. So improving win rates is a big improvement. And then if you can reduce your sales cycle, basically each seller can handle more deals in any given period. And that's also, reduce the sales cycle from 90 days to 75 days, basically saves you a seller on your salary. So those are the areas where you get the ROI, increasing win rates. So like Nucleus Research, an analyst firm, worked with Sugar CRM to look at if you take CRM and add it to ERP, how much can you improve your win rates? And I think they came to a conclusion that was about 7% or so, which is pretty dramatic.
And it was that Thomas had the idea about what typical metrics, X less, expedite costs, epsilon, higher attack, Z days shorter, is one of the topics you have already mentioned, which are important. So if you do it smart, you save time, you save money, and you have a better relationship established, such as you have more time to go into detail for the customer benefit. And that is something an ROI calculator normally does not capture, but it is the most interesting thing from my perspective, that if I go into a deal-based perspective and in a relationship-based perspective, and I do see here some interesting differentiators. So
I would say if you look at it from the sales effectiveness side, if you can if you could improve your sales effectiveness, you're freeing up sales capacity, right? So with the same team, you're freeing up sales capacity, and then your next decision is, how do you want to deploy that capacity? Do you want to deploy it on running more deals with the same team? Do you want to spend more quality time on existing deals to improve your win rate? You have choices on basically how do you deploy your increased efficiency. And those are business choices that might vary a little bit from customer to customer.
Out of curiosity, as we are big fans of your perspectives and all what you do and have done in the past, we all know they have been in sugar for a certain amount of time and have worked a lot with sugar. What sets Sugar CRM, out of your experience, apart from the competition with a focus on manufacturing or wholesales?
I like to point out that sugar has the baseline configurability, functionality that this particular market requires, but it's also not so complicated that it can't be run by one competent mere mortal. So it's comprehensive enough that one person dedicating time to sugar can really get their arms around all of it and take advantage of the full set of functionality. And that means that the customer can leverage the functionality to get gains for their business. It doesn't help a customer to buy a product that has even higher functionality if they don't have the people to release that functionality. If they haven't invested in the specialist to learn about some complicated capability, even if the product contains it, it doesn't do you any good, right? You're not releasing the value of that investment and that license you're paying. So So I would say, like, when we often go up against Salesforce, the idea is Salesforce probably has more functionality than Sugar CRM. And probably each of the functionality goes even deeper in any one Sugar CRM functionality. That's because they need to serve the enterprise.
Yeah.
But that is not valuable unless you have the specialist teams on your staff that are experts in each one of those functionalities. And no single expert can know all of it, right? So that means a mid-market manufacturer could invest in one competent sales admin who then has a chance of understanding how to use all of the functionality they bought for effect. So that's maybe a little bit of a kind of a dramatic point of differences, but that's the basic essence of it. It becomes a more cost-effective tool to administer, where that money you spend administering it releases more value out of the application because that person can actually understand it and deploy it for effect. Maybe with the help of a couple of consultants, but you get the idea.
Yeah, just was thinking, because there regularly is quite some coding necessary also in Sugar CRM, not only in, well, name your pick of the other crop, and that is hard to do for a small administration team.
Yeah, you need consultancy.
Very few of our manufacturing customers have custom code, so we very much try to avoid it. We focus on delivering kind of our discrete manufacturing template, and very rarely do we go into custom code. So having the configurability basis in tools like Sugar or Salesforce or Microsoft, there's a lot of things you can do in configuration. And if you're a little bit disciplined on it, if you're disciplined on both the customer side and the consultant side, you can avoid a lot of it. Now, often, neither party is very disciplined about that. The consultant makes more money if they're doing custom code. The customer becomes more dependent on them. There's reasons why they might be motivated to do custom code. But in the long term, it's not in the benefit of the customer.
Yeah.
And both of you would be better served being a little bit disciplined on how you approach that. Sometimes it's unavoidable. You have some custom business process that's really valuable for the manufacturer that you just need to do. You do it. But you impose some discipline on that process to everybody's benefit.
But the interesting thing you mentioned when you mentioned one competitor of yours who is very strong in the messaging on agentic, and you counterparted it in the arguments, if you have the real expert, such is my experience in the real field of the real life, such as the user acceptance for a tool where you see and feel and touch the benefit for yourself and your customers, is a lot easier than managing a flea circus, so to say, out of agentic tool sets where you not really know till you have a lot of experiments done, which is serving you at your needs and is benefiting for your customer and your organization and yourself. So if you ease that quiz game to an easy set of high wins emotionally and in the pocket of the organization and your own pan, you are the winner. You are the knight and the hero of the hearts. Yeah,
that's what I strive for. There are two different worlds: the worlds of branding and market leadership and product marketing and corporate marketing that talks about their agentic vision. It's a completely different thing with different goals than what I live on the ground. The ground is very practical, looking for those solutions, looking to be a hero, looking to solve very small things. So I work on the very small side and the very ground level side. The big agentic visions out there is a different domain, and I don't pay too much heed.
Talking about agentic and vision. Well, there are people who are saying who has a vision or who has visions should visit the doctor. But looking at business vision and how it's going ahead. So pretty much everybody and their dog is talking about agentic these days. We just opened the door as well.
Yeah.
And pretty much no one talks about value delivered. So which makes me wonder, so where in this conglomerate area of industry solution, manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, do agents and does an agentic architecture actually deliver values? And where not? So do you have some specific instances there?
There are instances where, like, so the challenge is, how do you put it into a business process at scale? So I think the most experience we have on that, from my experience, is mostly on the ERP side, where we're solving problems at scale for things like purchase order automation, invoice automation, the document automation. That's very easy to deploy. You'll see there's probably 100 vendors that are going out and doing it, right? We're doing it for Epicor, Kinetic, and Sugar, and very specific scenarios, but there's 100 other people that are using the same tools to try to accomplish the same thing. But there you're seeing immediate value because you could scale it into the organization and it becomes a part of existing business processes. Other things I think are harder to say, for instance, whether it's a typical chat engine, whether it's Gemini or Chat or Claude, how does that help the individual producer, and what's the value of that? That's harder, because it probably doesn't become valuable until it becomes a process at scale, and that hasn't really been discovered. It's amazing what it can do, and but it's mostly individual. For instance, like myself individually, I'm trying Claude Cowork, right, and experimenting what Claude Cowork can do, and it's astonishing. It's astonishing. It does certain things so well that it's kind of, wow, you're in awe of what it accomplished. Now, but how do you scale that and put it into business processes that are happening all across the organization and make your whole organization using those tools where they're linked together, where one task flows into another task and another task? That hasn't, at least to my experience, happened. It's probably happening somewhere and I just don't know about it, but it's not happening at scale where everybody's doing it. I'm sure it is coming. If you look at in the 1990s or 2000, when e-commerce was a big thing, everybody was e-commercing, but it took a decade before it became so valuable that it was indispensable. I think this will happen faster, but there's no doubt that it's coming.
So now we are sort of in the territory of studies like the agentic company or the infamous MIT Nanda thingy, where basically the result is that complex doesn't yet work. And on the other hand, you're saying what seems to work is personal productivity, Claude Cowork,
productivity for sure,
and
for interested parties.
And document automation, which is possible since 2010 or something. So with whatever we had as OCR and predictive analytics tools, which some people still consider AI, and that don't need the current breed of big models. So what do you think will put things across this boundary to make the bigger models actually useful?
Well, yeah,
at scale, of course.
The flexibility and the nimbleness of the LLMs is important. So if you use your example of document automation, that has, as you said, been around for a long time, but it was very rigid. You have to have a form, you had to define the form, you had to kind of code the form in certain ways, and if what you delivered into the OCR was in that format, it did a good job, right? But the LLMs are so nimble, it could take anything, interpret, something scribbled on a napkin and turn it into an invoice. It's so flexible that it provides a whole different way of doing that specific business function. And I think those kind of shifts where the value of the LLM is applied to a business process are gradually being discovered. They're probably being discovered pretty fast right now, and those things are coming. But it's not my primary area of expertise. Talking about manufacturing sales processes, I'm your man. AI, I'm in the same boat as you are.
Well, we are right at the intersection of your main expertise and the dream, or the vision, the visit to the doctor, perhaps.
So ignore it at your peril.
Take the right pills.
Sorry, the red one or the blue one? Yeah, and the red one, yeah. Well, the blue one has other connotations as well, meanwhile. If we are looking at manufacturing companies that say they often say the growth is one, well, at the customer in the installed base, doing renewals, using consumables, using spares, so extending service contracts and the likes. What capabilities that are within a CRM system make this, well, significantly better? And on the other hand, what signals matter most there to help businesses using that CRM system to, well, actually take advantage of the opportunities that are coming up there?
So in manufacturing, opportunities are often very, very long term. You are manufacturing of pipe, and you realize that they're building a new airport in Mexico City. And they're planning it on blueprints right now, but it's going to be built and constructed in the next 10 years. And you're working with engineers and contractors and architects and all kinds of people to make sure your pipe is being specified as what is going to carry gasoline and water and stuff around under the tarmac. So, and that could be, or you could discover that somebody's building a new battery plant in China. And they're going to do hydrogen batteries in China, being planned for 5 years from now, because that's how long they're planning out the new factory. They're looking at new technologies way into the future, and they're looking to have their machines and their components be a part of that factory. It's such a long process where you have to have so many people involved. Like you might have sales teams who are first initiating contact, other sales teams that are working with engineers and architects, other sales teams that are working to actually facilitate orders when the time is come for that. And they all have to have that context of that entire 5 to 10 year life cycle of that opportunity in order to do a good job. So that's where, like when we started the show about talking about CRM is needed. Even if you have agents doing any one of those tasks, they need to put that into history and have a repository for that historical relationship context, so other agents or other humans can do that job over time. Because it's not just selling a software where, Thomas, you're buying a software today and either you buy it or you don't, right? Yeah. It's discovering that you're planning something, maybe some new sailing school in Tahiti for 5 years from now. And what do we need to do to sell you a fleet of sailboats at that point, right? That requires work over time, coordinated work over time, more than one person across sales territories, across different roles in the organization.
Looking at the time, we are almost hitting the hour, which is amazing. Yeah. Scary, actually. Scary. It's going that fast. So, and as you know, we are usually asking for famous last words. Looking into manufacturing and CRM, how will a manufacturing CRM, a well-working manufacturing CRM, look like in 5 years?
I think just like the LLMs are making a difference because they're being nimble. I think the nimbleness of the CRMs, the nimbleness of deploying capabilities, the not being rigid, having, the value of the LLMs is having fairly uneducated people accomplished amazing things. And so my wish and hope, and I think it's going to come to reality, is the somewhat complex things that CRM does or is configured to do today becomes easier to accomplish for organizations across the level, where specialized tasks, like say, for instance, if you look at an integration tool like Zapier, for instance, which is a favorite tool of mine for integrating different types of tools, it used to be fairly complicated to connect this to that and code what it's going to do to transform this data to that data and so forth. Now, these days, you can use an LLM inside the application and say, I want to connect sugar to Apollo or sugar to anything, to whatever. And it does it for you without a lot of expertise. And seeing that being deployed into the CRM so that they can implement their sales processes, automate things, do things that are fun inside the CRM more easily, is where I think a lot of people are focusing on going.
Okay, so if I summarize that, easier integration as the secondary, and the primary one is becoming more nimble.
Yeah, easier value extraction from complex tools.
Okay, coolio, and thanks a lot now that we are over the hour. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks for everybody who we didn't scare off and instead say that there's still somebody in there.
Very nice.
And whoever is in here, plus you, Christian, maybe you can tune in next week when we dive into where CRM and CX should go in general with our guest Nitin Bajajia, who has quite the history in CRM systems as well. Looking forward to that one too. Yeah, looking forward to that one too. Okay.
Excellent.
Having said all that,
thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure, as always.
Bye. And we are going backstage now.